So as far as what has happened since, as we have continued on to Into the Harvest, we've had a couple of different visions that we've kind of given everyone. Keith just said one of them in his when he was talking earlier. Um, if you got it, just stepping out into the everyday places of life. I try to start this podcast the same way of just, we want to bring clarity and confidence to help be a disciple and make disciples. I think those things have not changed over the 3 years that we have been into the harvest. But Andrew, is there anything that you would say now that we have been here for 3 years as far as when you give your elevator speech for Into the Harvest, what do you tell people? Do you think that's changed at all, or is it exactly the same? Where do we stand?
I think it's mostly the same. We want to help ordinary followers of Jesus learn how to live and share their faith in the everyday places of life. And that really has not changed. I think for us, what is evolving is how can we better do that as a team? And then as a community, how can we build a community of people who share that vision and want to be on this journey with us? The three of us are on this journey, and we've got others in our local fellowships and others beyond San Antonio and San Diego who see that and want to be a part of it. But the evolution, I think, is just building that community and building better tools and resources to help people gain that clarity and that confidence that you were talking about earlier, Abigail, because I do think that those are the great enemies that confront us today in modern American Christianity. One is cloudiness about what does it really mean to belong to Jesus and to live for him and to make disciples and to be the church. These are very fundamental questions that we have as people of faith. But there's actually a lot of noise that is around us all the time. There's noise from the world, but there's also noise from within the larger church community about answers to those questions. And how can an ordinary believer get the clarity that he or she needs so that they know how to live out and share their faith in the everyday places, not just to get other people, not just to get their neighbors to come with them to the sacred space, to the church building on Sunday, but how do we bring Jesus into our neighborhoods and into our relationships? So that's one great enemy, is just noise. And the second, I think, is the traditions of men. We're 2,000 years removed from Pentecost, and what's familiar to us today is what we see out on the corner of First and Main, which oftentimes is the traditional expression of church that we've come to be familiar with in the United States and in the West in general. And we can begin to attach to that traditional structure divine value. And I think that's a big mistake. In Mark 7, verse 8, Jesus reprimanded the religious people of his day. He said, neglecting the commandment of God, you hold to the tradition of men. And man, that's so easy for us to do. It's so easy for us to hold to the tradition of men because that's what's familiar. That's what we see around us. That's what we grow up with. And when we do that, what we don't often realize is that it causes us to neglect the commandment of God. Not reject it, but we just neglect it. And that's why when you tell people, hey, church is not a place or an event, most Christians will agree with you. Like, oh yeah, church is the people. But the way that we end up living out our life demonstrates that that's not really what we believe or what we understand. So I think with Into the Harvest, the two things that we're trying to constantly come against is overcomplicating things and the noise that we're constantly facing. And then secondly, being overly reliant on the traditions of men to accomplish the work of God. We want to take it all the way back to what does Scripture say is necessary for us to live and share our faith and be the church. And then if we want to add things to that, that's not necessarily wrong, but we need to be very careful that the things that we add, we don't put on the same level as what we see in Scripture. So